Hello, hello, beautiful Lovetarians. Would you like to find out about Akashic Records? If this is something that interests you, I have a fabulous guest with me today, Taryn from South Africa, who is a teacher of Akashic Records, and she's a beautiful healer, and she's going to tell us all about it. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Natalia, and thank you for the beautiful opportunity to be a guest on this wonderful Lovetarian podcast. So, as you mentioned, I am a Akashic Record teacher and consultant, and it's just such a wonderful modality that entered into my life. And once it entered into my life, it was such a homecoming. It was such a soul remembrance for me. So, the Akashic Records is your book of life. So every experience that your soul has undergone, not only your expression of your soul, but your oversoul. So everything that your oversoul and you have experienced in all dimensions and existences is recorded in your book of life. And the beautiful thing is that we get to access and read the Akashic Records. We get to read the wisdom of the Akasha. And it really brings in that understanding. So when you come with a certain theme or a belief, or you're feeling stuck in a certain way, we can, in our own minds, say, "Oh, I think it's this, and I think this is the thread." And yet, when you enter into the Akashic Records, the frequency is love and light. Mm-hmm. So it's truth, love, and light. And we really unpack through your record keepers. So this is the beautiful thing about the Akashic Records, is that your records has a consciousness and you have a consciousness, and the two work as a lock and key. So permission to actually access your records is so vital, because it's such sacred work. We don't want anyone going into your records and just clearing and doing, So when we enter into the records, we really get to align with the truth and the light and the love of your soul. And the beautiful thing is we then get to clear what's not in alignment with that. So all these outdated programs and imprintings, illusions, beliefs, vows, oaths, there's so much that actually we hook into and we get attached to that limit us from being a true divine self. The full expression of our true divine self.
Beautiful. We get some viewers saying hello, hello. We don't know what your name is, so please, if you're new to this broadcast, give StreamYard permission to show your name, or put your name in the comment box so we know whom we're talking to. And hello, beautiful souls. Yes, we're very happy to have you here. And if you have questions for Taryn, please put them in comment box and we'll address them. We only have 50. Erica. Hello, Erica. Yeah, we have Erica is also our sister in the mystery school. And we would definitely address any questions later on, because we have, Taryn, we have more or less for 55 minutes, because we want to put that also on IGTV. Yeah. So you've answered what Akashic Records are, but for somebody who is completely new to this, which can also happen because our audience is on different level of consciousness, how would you explain this thing existing? I mean, can anybody enter it? Do you have to be trained? Can you yourself change it? Do you need a guide, teacher? Just give them, like one-on-one if they don't know anything about it.
So thank you, Natalia. So as I mentioned, it really is your library of your soul. So if you have to imagine it, you can either imagine it as a book, and each page is an experience, or you can imagine just walking into this beautiful, ancient, exquisite library, where each book in the library is an experience that you've gone through. And so when we go in, we just access that book, that page, in whatever it is that you are seeking clarity on. And sorry, I've just gone blank. I need to just take a breath. So I'm just going to place my hand on my heart. I've just gone completely blank.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where did that come from?
Well, it happens. We were talking about it before we went live, right? That things are happening, all sorts of thingies are trying to hook into our consciousness, you know.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so to me, every single person should be accessing their records. There is a lot of free content to learn how to access your records. What I've realized is that a lot of my clients come to me and say, oh, I did this, free course, or I did this free meditation, and it seemed like I accessed my records. But when I want to purposely access them without going into meditation, I really battle. And I think that's where we seek guidance, because even though we have access to our records, like when I learned how to access my records, it really was a homecoming, but I didn't realize I was always in my records. It was just something that I did naturally, but I didn't have the 3D language to understand what it was I was accessing, and then also how to purposely access them and how to purposely create shifting and changing in them. And I think that depends on how you are taught to read the records. For me, I would love every child to learn how to read. Like every human being, to me, should be reading their records. Just like the Sophia Code, it's a modality that gets you back into yourself. So after years of experiencing, externalizing my spiritual awakening, externalizing my ascension, always going outside of myself, for that, when the Sophia Code, as you know, came in, and then the Akashic Records, it was, how do I become fully self-resourced? And I can have an idea of like, I'll give you an example. I've been wanting to lead a soul-led business for many years, for a decade. And I never got myself, even though I'd done so many modalities and I had a lot of qualifications, I never had anything that I felt like I could really present to the world. And when I did find that, I was also then thinking, okay, well, I don't want to be seen in the world. It's a worth thing. I don't feel worthy to be seen as somebody that can potentially help someone else on their journey of awakening or ascension. So I had placed an idea in my head that it was a worth thing. And when I accessed my records, it was still in the early days when I went into my records for, one of the first or second times, I then asked, because you've got guides, you've got record keepers, and you've got ascended masters, and you've got this beautiful family of light that actually bring you the information. And I went in, why do I feel like I can't be fully visible in my spiritual leadership? Mm-hmm. And I still had this notion that I was going to be told that it's a self-worth. I was going to go into my solar plexus and do a clearing there. And they then took me to, because that's the other thing, is we really want to get to the root cause. We want to get to the origin of where this actually came from. And then they showed me a host of events where I absolutely am worthy of being visible and seen as a spiritual leader. I was just absolutely terrified because, as you know, with the witch wound, we were hunted. I was actually a trophy kill. So I actually saw, I don't want to be too graphic, but I saw, certain events, and it was like, oh, I was a trophy prize. I was the head of all witches. And that's why I'm just absolutely terrified to be seen, because of what it brought in that experience. And once I cleared that, you've seen how visible I am now. I will speak all my truth unapologetically and completely owning all of that. And that's the essence of the records, is it brings you back to that origin and that truth beyond what you have idealized in your own understanding of what it could be. So for me, everyone should be reading their records. And even though there is quite a lot of free content and how to access the records, I also believe, and this is just a personal opinion, how we taught to go into the records and go into those deep dives essentially allows us to read the records in a very, very deep, fundamental, transformational way. So I always say that there is, you can access the records is one thing, but how you read your records and how you read records for others, that is a completely different thing. That really depends on just getting that expertise, and what questions to ask, how to go deeper, how to access that resource that is available to all of us naturally, I believe.
And how does a session look like with you?
So I generally, my sessions are on 60 to 90 minutes. And, it's such a common question, as you know, well, what results can I expect from the records? And it's such a difficult question to answer, because I just show up as a clear channel for the divine information to flow through me. And I never have an idea of where the record keepers are going to take me. So the point of healing will be exactly to your highest priority. So whatever your highest priority of healing is, that is where we will go. So I'll get a client that will come to me with they're wanting clarity on their life purpose. That's often a very common, what's my life purpose? I want clarity on what's the next step. And often they will take me back a few steps, and they'll take me to an underlying belief or an illusion or a fear that's actually preventing the person from really resourcing their purpose or their passion, or understanding that. So it uncovers so much, and there's so much understanding and clarity as to why a person might be feeling stuck or not having clarity around something. So we basically just come into a session, and you grant me permission, and open your records, and then I just allow your record keepers to guide each clearing, each unpacking, each question, each layer, basically. Sometimes we go really deep, and sometimes there are past life threads, but the record keepers will determine if it's appropriate and if it's necessary actually for a past life thread to actually even come into play. They might just take us straight to the healing of it, straight to the transformation through it. Because as you know, a lot of us get stuck in the story. We get hooked into, well, I'm like this because of that, and then we hook into the story, and the story then becomes something we live through constantly. So I'm constantly consulting with the record keepers, with your guides, the ascended masters, and they really just guide the whole entire process. So sometimes we do radical clearing, especially in the world we live in now. We were just chatting before we came live. There's so many implants and attachments and tracking devices that we don't even know are embedded in our consciousness. So they sometimes take me straight to clearing all these implants and microchips. So it's very fascinating. Some clients will go into a healing bed. They get placed on a crystalline healing bed, and they just are able to really resource deep divine healing beyond our human understanding. So the frequency of the records is also such a beautiful vibration. And I often say to my clients, you and I could sit in the resonance of your records, and the healing is happening multidimensionally beyond our human understanding. But the mental aspect of our bodies wants to know the,
Of course.
So we just appease the mind actually, but we could just sit there and chat, and the clearing is happening for us.
Can you give some examples of some extraordinary healing or revelations that people received? Obviously, we like testimonials.
Sure. There's so many. I'm just trying to access maybe one that's fresh. Because what often happens is I clear my memory bank of a client session. So after a session, I don't actually remember until I'm sitting in front of them again, and then that certain piece of a previous session needs to come out to play and needs some reference. I will then go, I'll then get the remembrance of that. So it's not often that I remember client sessions, to be honest, but there are some standouts. And then the standout ones I do lock into my memory bank. So I've got some really wild ones, which I don't know if the audience, the audience is ready for. So let me just take a moment to access that. I think it's better if I speak about no, let me not speak about myself, because that's all. Maybe there's a question. Maybe a question from the audience will just prompt something.
They seem to be shy. Lots of hello. No questions yet. Guys, girls, if you have any questions, put them in the comment box. For now, there's no questions. Just before that, somebody asked, and you give some examples of healing. So very general.
Okay.
Very general. What could be expected? Just people are very curious.
Yes. Well, okay, so sure. I'm just trying to access something that I can actually create a story around, but it's not going to take a good length of time for you. Let's talk about money.
Why not?
So yes. So I had a client who's had, consistent highs and lows, a lot of money and then low money. And so we actually set up a session that she was going to welcome money into her home as if it was a guest. And as money came through the door, it presented itself in a certain way. And it was interesting to see how the client was actually trying to support money. And money is actually a supportive energy. It's here to support us. It's here to support our dreams and our desires and our needs and all of those things. And yet the roles had reversed. So money was very confused. It's like they had a dialogue, and money was very confused because money didn't know how to show up in this person's life, because it wants to support her, yet because she's an overgiver and needs to, be supportive to others, she wasn't even allowing money to support her. So then we would unlock, where did she learn that pattern? Where did she learn that she needed to be supportive to others? Where was the block in not allowing money in? And then it turned out that when we go deep, like we like to go very deep, and sometimes the questions will come out so we can go maybe 5-7 layers deep. And it actually turned out after all these layers that in her consciousness, money equaled death.
Oh,
so more money actually equaled death. So if more money equals death, of course somebody's going to shut off money. Of course somebody was going to want to support money and allow money to support them, because then if money's supporting them and there's an excess of money, then the untruth, the disbelief, the illusion is that I'm going to die because I have so much money. And then as we know,
sorry, go on.
And then, as you know, that's such an illusion, because more money actually equals more health, more, you're able to resource vitamins or healthier food, or, you know what I mean? So when we unpacked it and then we actually realized that all these things were illusions, we could then go, but actually, what does more money actually mean, and the truth of it? And then we were able to, and then we cleared that. And then when we looked at money again, money showed up as an old woman. And this client was trying to be really wise with her money and really responsible with her money, which is good. But she had lost that playful innocence that money can bring, that joy, like when a child just experiences money or experiences joy. So that's one way, like, that's going into just say a money story in the Akashic Records. I have a client that she owns 3 properties. And she owns 2 businesses, and she entered into successions, and we went into her properties, and she wants to sell them or rent them out. And we went into what is the energy in the properties, in her rental properties, that is preventing her from accessing her ideal tenant or her ideal buyer. And it was interesting, the one the one property, they kept showing me, the records kept showing me, because we're going to the consciousness of that actual property, just like we can go into the consciousness of your business. Everything has its own unique consciousness, which we access. And they kept showing me that there was a blockage in the water, in the ley lines or the water. I just kept seeing there was a blockage. There was no maintenance done, and there was a lot of clearing that we did. And then the next day she let me know that they've just reported a major water leak in the complex of that certain property. And she was just astounded that all came up the day, the evening before we did the records. So yeah, that's just some of the things that are.
Somebody actually asked a question, but that's not exactly, I don't know if you can address that. I don't know what your name is, person. Could you put your name in the comment box? I have a connection to Wales, the country, but never been. Can you explore?
Okay, so I have an example of a lady that I did a session for, and I kept getting shown a snow sledge. So she's South African. I kept getting, we don't have snow here, a snow sledge, those real heavy booted boots and what have you. And I was like Alaska's coming in. And she's like, oh my goodness, Taryn, I've been watching documentary after documentary of Alaska. I absolutely love Alaska. I've just ordered these boots, because I was explaining what the boots look like. And she's like, I've just ordered these boots. They were exactly what I was seeing. And she had some soul remembrance where in a lifetime she was one of those, I don't know what they're called now, sledge riders.
Yeah.
Forgive me. And there was a whole thing around that. It's actually around her family, and how she had to let, in that lifetime, a daughter go in a sled to go and get medical treatment, and she had to say goodbye, and how that's played out in a relationship in this lifetime, and how she's found it really difficult to say goodbye to that same soul essence because of that. So we have beautiful connections with many parts of the world, and there's a soul remembrance there for you, and there's a lifetime, if not lifetimes, where you've actually been on that land and lived on that land, and the records could explain if it was, that's the other thing, is we come with an idea of what we would like clarity on, and then the records will take us in a direction that is for your highest priority of healing. I haven't had a client, I must be honest, that's left not feeling fulfilled, in the sense that even if we've gone in a completely different direction, the insights that come through, the clarity that comes through afterwards, it's like, wow, that was amazing. I didn't understand it from that. Now that I actually have an understanding, it makes sense. And even if information comes through that the client maybe hasn't experienced in this lifetime, there's still a resonance of truth. There's still like something that happens in their bodies that go, like, I didn't experience that in this lifetime, but I can feel there's a resonance happening in my body. I can actually get biofeedback from my body that's resonating with what you are sharing. So that's always interesting.
Beautiful. So how reading Akashic Records would be different than past life regression, for example?
So I think with a past life regression, you go in purposely to access that lifetime and get all the information from that lifetime. I'm not too sure where we access past life regressions from. So the Akashic Records is in the 6th plane of existence, and we can access past life threads, again, only if it's necessary for the healing. So I do believe a lot of our programming and imprinting and vows and oaths all have these experiences. And as you know, all our lives are being led multidimensionally in the here and now. So we live in all of that. But it's not necessary that we actually go into the seeing, the feeling, the unpacking of that actual past life. They might just give a snippet and say this goes back to the 1500s when you worked on a coal mine, but they won't give any more information. They just like give the origin, and then they give what's come from that. And then we go into the clearing, because at the end of the day, we want to clear these, and we also want to clear it from the cellular memory. So that's also where we get unstuck, is that when we access information, we access the information and it makes sense to us, but then we don't clear those layers that we can create that permeance in the transformation and in the shifts of whatever that programming, imprinting, illusions, beliefs that have come off that lifetime.
Beautiful. I don't know. Do you know where the name Akashic Record is coming from?
It's a Sanskrit name, and it's a Sanskrit name for, I think, soul wisdom, but I stand to be corrected. But it's the Akasha, so that's the Akasha is a Sanskrit name.
And were you also guided to really look into it through the Sophia Code, or because we started to talk about, I don't know if we talked about it on the record or before we came live?
Before we came live.
Yeah, before, yeah. So could you tell that story? How come you are doing what you're doing?
Thank you, Natalia. So I did a lot of soul ascension, awakening from 2009. And I really had this idea I was going to lead a soul-led business, and I kept putting it off because I just really didn't have anything that was a catalyst for me. And then entered in the Sophia Code, and my life completely up-leveled. My life, there was, as you know, there's life before the Sophia Code and there's life after the Sophia Code.
Those who don't know, that's the Sophia Code, which is a living transmission.
You can't see, Natalia?
Kind of like this, a little bit, but it's very bright now.
There we go. Yes.
Yes.
And it's interesting because a lot of the initiations in the Sophia Code, you actually get taken into your Akashic Records. The Isis initiation, for one, that's a massive clearing in the root chakra, and you do that in your Akashic Records because it then spreads out through all the dimensions, the planes, your times, your levels of consciousness. And that's the beauty about working in the Akasha. So I traveled to America in 2019 to attend the Sophia Circle Conference. And I met a beautiful soul sister along the way, and we connected. And then I teach the Akashic Records. And I had been here in South Africa for a good few years trying to find somebody who read the Akashic Records. There was always this like, I need to understand the Akashic Records. I need a reading. There was always this like soul pull. And I just jumped in. It was like, I didn't even think, about time difference, about exchange rates. I got to do this. And the moment I stepped into my Akashic Records for the first time, it was it was just life-changing. So the Sophia Code and Akashic Records are my two core offerings because they've been the most life-changing for me. They really created that foundation and that catalyst from where all else, I do believe that there's more to come for me. But those two will always be that foundational catalyst for me.
Beautiful. So can you see when you go and you do the session, can you do one on yourself as well?
Yes. So that's why when we teach the Akashic Records, level 1 is actually accessing the records for yourself. So, and that's why I say everyone should be accessing their own records, because this is where we can go in and we can really understand the truth, especially in the world that we live in now. There are so many variants of truth, and we don't quite know, like, what is our contract with the experiment? There are those that are the experiment, those that are the experimenter, those that are not. What is our contract with the experiment? Do we have to learn this wisdom through this experiment? Is there another way? Is it a contract that we can now clear? And those are all truths that we get to access for ourselves. So I had a lady that came to learn the Akashic Records, and after a couple of hours, she's like, and then I think it was the next day she came back. She's like, I can't read the records. This is not for me. This is just not my gift. I can't, so I set up the training and such that you get a lot of personal support. And I set up a one-on-one with her, and we went to unpack why she didn't feel like she could access her own records. Because I know that we should all be accessing our own records, because it holds the truth for ourselves, and we get to really do our own clearing through the guidance of the record keepers. And then after the session, there was so much that was actually blocking her. And now she's reading her records like an absolute champ. And she's like, oh, that was just the small part of her going, no, I can't do this, let me just give up on it. So I get lost in my records. I can spend 3 hours in my records, just unpacking and understanding. So the one day I actually did, I spent just over 3 hours in my records. And then I had a session with a colleague, with a peer, to go into, because there are things that we're just too close to. And there's also, especially when we start talking about distractor implants and tracking devices, we're not going to be able to see that ourselves. We need someone else to actually be able to see that in us. So I'd spent about 3 hours in my records, and then I had a session with a colleague. And within 20 minutes, it was a super packed session. 20 minutes, she basically, whatever I did in my record, she didn't, unbeknownst to her, she then just took it to that whole new level. And I was just amazed. I was like, every 5 minutes, I've just done that. I've just, I've just written about that. This is what I said. And then she would just bring in that extra, that elevation. And then after, she said, Taryn, that was such an amazing session, because you had basically done all the hard work. All we had to do now, going in, me accessing your records now, was we could just fine tune it. And that's what I love, is that we can get rid of all that like fluff that we would spend thousands of rands and thousands of hours with someone else when we access our own records. And then we can utilize that space when we are with another person who reads the records to really elevate that and really get to those parts that we are just too close to. And that's why I say everyone, to me personally, should be reading their records.
And you are teaching it, of course. You have courses.
I do teach it. I do teach it through a Soul's Journeys method, just because I've really gone in deep into that in that healing course. I've done the masters in that, and it just gives you so much depth to how to actually read the records. And it was just something I actually got confused, because there's level 1, which is your own records. Level 2 is you access other people's records, but more informally. So it's more like for friends and family. And then the third level is you go really deep. And that's when you really get to access other people's records in a more formal way, in the sense of you get certified. You get internationally certified. I always thought level 3 meant teacher training. So when I entered into level 1, I'm like, okay, by level 3, I'm teaching the records. And then level 3 came and was like, no, this isn't teacher training. So my soul already knew before I even entered into the records that I was always going to teach this. I just got confused along the way.
Nice. Well, I'm trying to imagine how it would be. So what you are trained to see like a library with lots of books, and then you see all this information coming. I can't imagine how it would be.
So the interesting thing is that just, before going to America, I actually thought I had no gifts. I thought, oh yes, we all have gifts. I know that, from a mental state, but I didn't have it from a cognate state. And that's why I had done a modality after modality, trying to search and seek what is my gift, And then I traveled to America. Some information came through to me. I actually realized that I channel grandmother wisdom naturally. I don't have to be in a channeled state. It just happens. And then when I entered the records, that's when my clairvoyance came out. In the beginning, was such vividness that my third eye would ache, and I would actually go blurry for hours. For about 3 hours, things would be hazy. Now I've realized that I access clear sentience, the feeling. I access clear cognizance, the knowing. I even sometimes smell. I don't know what clear that is, but I'll actually get a scent. The audio isn't quite there. I don't do clear audio yet. I've even done mediumship. Unbeknownst to me, I'll get someone's loved one. I had a client's dog come in the other day. I was like, someone's left you, and it ended up, it was her ex-husband. And I'm like, was there a dog? Like, was there a custody, like over a dog? Because I see the dog leaving. And she's like, no, there is a dog. And he was here through the divorce, but he left shortly after he passed on. And the dog showed himself to me, you know, and like all these things. And when I relayed that to her, she's like, yes, he used to do that. And, yes, he used to do that. So that just amazes me. Like, so the other interesting thing is we will read someone else's records in the language that most resonates with them. So if they're very visual, I will get a lot of clairvoyant messages. But if they clear sentience and it's a feeling, then I'll start feeling things. So we access the language that best resonates with the client or ourselves. So if we're in our own records, we will get the messages coming through in that language that resonates with us.
But you're not in trance of any sort. You're just like that.
We actually, when we learn, we learn with our eyes open so that we don't go into trance. But I do, especially when I go into the records for the first time for somebody, I like to close my eyes because then I do just be able to like get clarity. But then as the information comes through, a lot of the time my eyes are open so that we don't go into a trance state. It's also set up that we can start differentiating what is the records and what is our own higher self intuition. So a lot of coaches come and learn how to access the records because it just, you know, the records elevates any modality that you do. So you could be a business coach and then you access, you do Akashic Record, like you EFT tapping, you can do any modality, but you do it in the resonance of someone's records. So you elevate it. And even psychics will come and learn how to read their records. And we want to be really clear what is an intuitive psychic hit and what is coming through the records. Because that can, you know, we don't want to go into our default of oh, I can psychically see that, because we're then taking away the wisdom that wants to come through the records. Because we can think that one aspect of something coming up in our lives is this, but there could be 1,000 possibilities of what it could be that only the records can share in the truth and the light of what that is. It's like, if, for example, if we access like the metaphysics, if I've hurt my big toe and we go to say, you know, the metaphysics, and now we decide that I've hurt my big toe because of XYZ, because the book that I read from, you know, whoever has told me that that is the reason why I hurt my big toe. But when we go into the records and we go, why did I hurt my big toe? What is the lesson, or what is happening here? There could be a completely different, mind-blowing reason. That wasn't, you know, so we don't want to limit ourselves by what we think we know or what we read. We really want to be in that real solid space of what is it that the record keepers, the ascended masters, are sharing about this specific thing that's happening in my life, because the thread and the theme can be something that we would never have even thought of.
Mm-hmm. And is there any limitation to how long can you be in your records?
No. Well, like I said, I spend 3 hours. Yeah. What I do, I like to even set up healing beds where I will just take myself, especially if I'm going through, like especially the times we're in now, and we can be really absorbing collective energy or something. I will actually go for a nap in the afternoon, and I open my records and I go into a healing chamber and I lie on a healing bed, and I just say whatever needs to be run through this healing chamber while I'm napping, you know, full restoration. And then I get out wake up from my nap and I close my records and off I go. So you can get very creative in the records.
Okay, so you can do basically whatever you want, whatever you feel inspired to do.
Yes, and you can always ask permission. You can always go, I have this idea, could it work? And then you'll get the truth of what is coming through. And then also guidance. I know a lot of people go into their records, especially around launch dates or to download programs and to download content, like to actually go into your records and go, I'm going to be writing a book. And what wants to come through the records for me to actually put pen on paper and bring through this book. So like, for example, I know that I am bringing in a healing medicine called Heartsense Healing. I don't know the 3D language of it yet. I know my records holds the language of it, and I've been shown the book in my records. And I know that when it's right, that book is then going to make itself available for me to actually download that information in a 3D language. So there's so much that one can access. You can access like the book of creation and the book of manifestation. That's where I believe the training comes in. Like when you know all these things that you can do in the records, that comes from the depth of training that you get to know that you have all these different avenues to explore in the records.
Perfect. And you can use it for your health, whatever issues you are going through, for your money, relationship, anything.
Absolutely anything and everything. I had a client who is going through divorce, and we just unpacked what is her relationship with her ex-husband, and why does he treat her in a certain way. And it turned out that he is her father in another experience, and that's why he treats her the way he treats her. He undermines her or tries to control her or literally treats her like a child. And then there was just this understanding, and then a lot of narcissism comes through the records, and then we just clear how that person has bent and buckled to the will and power of others. So your relationships, like I said, mediumship, loved ones, animals that have passed, they come through the records. It's really just there's galactic. There's so much. You can access the Akashic Records of the Earth. You can access galactic records. I had a client the other day that it turns out that she had an abduction memory that she always like, what is it true? Is it not? And then we unpacked, it wasn't what she thought it was. But it was all galactic. We worked in the galactic realms within her Akashic Records. But afterwards, she was like just so amazed at how much everything made sense and how that was actually playing out in different aspects and different ways in her life now because of that experience.
So if somebody's suffering a lot, you would just meet them and you would go in and ask questions, and the guides would come through and you would get the answers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you hear, people, if you're suffering, if you can't take this journey of ascension, if you can't take everything that is happening in the world, get in touch with Taryn. She can help you.
Because that's the whole thing, Natalia. Ascension is our capacity to hold higher frequencies of our own, the light codes of our own soul, the language of our soul, our light language. That's what Ascension actually is. So we also run Akashic Ascension codes, where we actually expand the consciousness of your own body's consciousness, your own consciousness, your bank account's consciousness, your business consciousness, relationships consciousness, even your relationship with your pets. Like there's so much, because that's all we're here to do. We're here to expand our container so that we can hold more of our own light, and then we can actually shine that to the world.
Beautiful. Well, we are coming on 44 minutes now. So if anybody has a question, hurry, because we're going to be wrapping up. How could people work with you if they would like to? Is it best to contact you through your website?
Yes, so you're welcome to go to my website. You're also really welcome to either private message me on Facebook or email me. I do obviously one-on-one sessions. I also have 4 and 6 session packages. Really, if I just see people that have stepped into like a 6 session package. As the second and third session comes, there's a sense of, oh, I can trust in this. And the depth in which we go is so much deeper when the person actually trusts the understanding of the records. So those are really wonderful packages. And then to read your records, I am opening up level 1. Probably I haven't decided on the date. I haven't consulted my records yet for the date. It'll probably be the end of January or February, where you learn to access your own records. And there's a lot of bonuses, when you step into unlocking the wisdom of your own Akasha through either level 1 or through to level 3, where you then get certified and can read records professionally.
Lovely. Well, is there anything else that is coming through that you would like to tell our audience? Any final words?
No, I think I spoke a lot today.
Yeah, really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And yes, if anyone has any questions, wants to know more, just private message me, email me, and we can just see, we can explore together. I had a client today who came for a session. She's like, I just want to explore. So we just went exploring, and she sent me a message off. She's like, I can't believe all of that came through. So yeah, it's a really wonderful exploratory modality where dreams and miracles just unfold before our very eyes. So thank you.
Having been digging in the records so long now that you have, how do you look at the life that we live these days, the illusion of our life right now? Do you treat it seriously? Do you take it with some humor? How do you perceive life, knowing what you know and having access to all the information that you have?
The things that I've seen in the records and people's bodies, and the things that have been released and removed from people's bodies, is the things I've experienced in my own records around ritual sexual abuse, and all of those atrocities that my own soul has experienced, and that came. I can't unsee what I know, and that's why I'm such an advocate now for the truth, and I'm so unapologetic on my Facebook page, because there's a difference. There's one thing hearing what people are saying, and it's a different thing feeling it. So if I've got 2 minutes, I'll just share that I had this sense that I had a responsibility coming from somewhere. So I went into my records, and it actually showed that I'm experiencing a lifetime where I'm a 9-year-old girl to an aristocrat. And as you know, aristocratic children do go through these satanic ritual abuses. They just don't get sacrificed. And I wept. I wept from the depth of my soul, because my soul now knew that that part of me is going through this as we speak, and I didn't know how to help her. And like the emotion that comes up, the knowing and the feeling of what is happening is so like visceral. Even now I'm feeling the emotion of it. But then we clear it. We clear, the hook and the ties, and we bring in whatever protection. We fortify energy, our auric fields. There's cloaks of invisibility we can place upon us. All of these things. So when you feel that, you don't only hear it, and you don't only like access it in the records, you actually feel it, and you're experiencing it almost in real time. You can't block out the truth of that. And that's why a lot of the time the record keepers actually use the space that that is created in my sessions to actually pull out a lot of these implants and these tracking devices, and actually just clear the bodies so that we can be fully sovereign in our divinity, and actually allow ourselves to be fully expressed without all of those attachments. So whatever we've heard, like, there's so much truth to that. But don't take my word for it. My teacher always says, don't trust me on this. Go into your records, ask your records. If you're having a problem with this person, or you're thinking this person has two truths and a lie, go in your records, ask your record keepers. They'll tell you the truth. And that's where I say we should all be accessing our records, because don't trust me on something I'm telling you. When you access your own records, you get to access your own truth, and then you start seeing the truth of what's happening. Like I said to you when we were off, I know when somebody's had the mandatory thing that's going around. I won't use the word because we get blocked. And I've seen heavy metals in people's bodies. I've seen a disconnection in the prefrontal cortex. I've seen all sorts of things in a person's body as a direct result of what is being infused in people's bodies right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I can own that truth. I can own what's happening, which is very liberating.
Well, the good news is that there's a solution to it. Because
Absolutely.
if the problem exists, there must be a solution, no?
Yes.
The duality, reality of our world is that there is a problem, there is a solution, but that cannot be another way, I believe. So that's brilliant.
No. And what we've been asked to be more of is more fun and joyful, and experience a lot more playfulness and joyfulness. Like, I've been told I need to get out of the seriousness of my purpose and my mission. Like, that's one part, but I really need to start factoring in fun. Like, it's a non-negotiable right now. We need to really amp up our ability to anchor and then embody that heaven on earth. And we're only going to do that if we are fully resourced in our physical body, as you know, Natalia, but that we actually experience the joy that life has to offer us. And that's also one of the distractor implants, is that they're robbing us of our joy. You know, there's no more concerts. Christmas is like cancelled here in South Africa. Nobody can go travel, visit their family, their friends. Like, children go to school and come home. Like, where's they really... They're robbing us of the joy, because that's where the divine expression is the highest frequency is joy.
And we will persevere, and we will keep refocusing on the light and joy, and we'll keep releasing all the doo-doo. And yeah, that's what we will do. And that's what we are doing. And that's my wish for everyone.
And we get to, you know, some days I need to lean into other, you know, way showers and beacons of light, and other days I get to be that, you know, that support structure for others. And if we can just create communities upon communities where we can access each other's love and grace and gifts, that's what gets us through.
So the final 2 minutes, what would your advice be for the people that are going through this and they treat it very seriously? What would be the 3 things that they can do to kind of dispel this illusion and, you know, have hope? Believe in magic.
Yes. You know, if we can just place our hand on our hearts every day and just take a beautiful breath in and just land our breath into our heart and just feel, what is it that the truth of our heart wants to express? That joy within our heart. Like, to me, that's probably the best gift we can give ourselves, is really starting to go from outer to inner. Just taking that moment to really... What I do at night, I sleep with a teddy bear. I have my partner, you know, I sleep with a teddy bear, and I hug my teddy bear. And before I go to bed, I tell myself how much I love myself. And I like hug the teddy bear, and I just like, I love me, and I love you, and I just love, you know, my inner child and all of that. So really connecting with our heart is such a beautiful way that we can just really appreciate ourselves first. as you know, just unplug from all that mainstream media.
Yeah.
And just to start discerning, start really asking questions to yourself, and just be curious. Just really be curious. The world is set up, the systems are set up for our failure. There is no system that we have been brought up in that has been set up for our success. It's all been set up for our failure. So we've been set up to follow rules. We've been set up to follow the masses. We've been set up to have civic duty. We've been set up to be to sacrifice ourselves, to be the martyr, to be codependent. These are all systems that have been set up for our failure. And it's time that we unhook from that and we start being selfish, being self-discerning, giving to ourselves first. And then we'll have so much more to give to the world.
With this beautiful accent in love and light, we wish you a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much, Taryn. It was fantastic. We better end it if we want to put it on IGTV. Please join us next week when I'm going to talk to Carmel Sastra. We're going to talk about chakra and energy healing once again. And yeah, how you can help yourself, help your body heal in those times. God knows we need it. Huh? So thank you. Cut the cords. That's right, sister. You said it, or brother. I don't know who said that. Gratitude. Thank you so much. Thank you, Taryn. Namaste from my heart to yours. And we'll see you next week. Have a lovely weekend, everyone.